media posting that when you look back on it, you see signs that may have alerted people that this young man was suffering from some sort of mental health crisis and planned to do something like this. Obviously, after the Parkland shooting at the high school there, we all became aware that we needed to do more than just address mental health issues, but we needed to do that. We needed better collaboration between local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies. We needed to figure out a way to mine information from social media postings where individuals literally advertise their intention to do something like this. But one of the things I talked to Governor Abbott about is we also appropriated a significant amount of money to help schools harden themselves as a target, because these shooters frequently look for opportunities, and those opportunities are the soft targets where they know people will be unlikely to be able to return fire and to stop them. Thank goodness, though, Santa Fe Independent School District had law enforcement officials on the site, or this could have been even worse. And so we thank all of the law enforcement officers and first responders who came to the aid here. This obviously is still evolving, but we do know that there were also some explosive devices located both in the shooter's car and at the school, and I know they're just finishing up the process of going through the school to make sure there are no unidentified explosive devices still there. But obviously this young man planned on doing this for some time. He prepared for it. He advertised his intentions, but somehow slipped through the cracks. About 16 to 18 months ago, we also passed legislation called the Mental Health and Safe Communities Act, which is designed to help teachers and school counselors and parents communicate more about problematic students who are sending off all the wrong signals, but nothing ever seems to quite happen. Again, we don't know exactly what the whole story is for this young man, but we do know this is a terrible tragedy, and we're all heartbroken at the result. But we need to continue to do everything we can to figure out how to stop these terrible events. This young man was 17 years old. He could not go in and legally purchase a firearm, yet he was able to acquire one, apparently, of his father's shotguns and semi-automatic pistol. That's another issue we need to look at, whether parents and others should have a legal obligation to secure these firearms from people like their children who are going through some sort of crisis. So with that, I'd be happy to answer a few questions.
Senator, I understand you just spoke with some of the families. Would you mind telling me what that was like and what they're going through right now?
Actually, I did not talk to the family yet. I did talk to the FBI special agent in charge, and it expressed my gratitude for the federal agents who are here locally. There also are agents from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Like the bombings in Austin, where we had 500 federal agents on the ground, there's a significant federal law enforcement presence here. And obviously, everybody from the President to Secretary of Education DeVos is watching what's going on here and offering not just their prayers and sympathy, but asking what can we do to help.
Senator, how big of a role did the school resource officer, the armed officer, how big of a role did they play in all this not being worse than what it?
Well, sometimes it takes a good guy with a gun to stop a bad guy with a gun, and that's why it's important to have armed law enforcement officers present. I know we all would wish for a bygone era when that may not have been necessary, but in these days and times, I think it's only prudent to have armed law enforcement officers present to come to the aid of innocent victims of gun violence. And you know, that's another conversation we're going to have to continue to have, what that ought to look like, whether it's a single officer who obviously can't be everywhere all the time, or something more than that.
What kind of shotgun was it, Senator?
I don't know what kind of shotgun it was. There was some suggestion it was some sort of the barrel had been sawed off. To some point, we don't yet know if it was an illegal shotgun, which I believe is under 18 inches, or not. But obviously, it's capable of a lot of devastation.
Was there only one firearm involved?
Pardon me?
Was there only one firearm involved?
I'm told there was a semi-automatic pistol and a shotgun. Those are the two weapons involved, is what I'm told. Again, I'm only telling you what I have heard reported. Obviously, the investigation continues. In addition, as I mentioned, there were apparently some pipe bombs and also some pressure cooker type bombs like those that were used in the Boston Marathon tragedy a few years ago. I don't know. I'm told that there was perhaps the barrel was reduced in size. We don't yet know whether it was illegal, because if as long as it's 18 inches or longer than 18 inches, it wouldn't be illegal. It's my understanding. If it's shorter, it would be. So I don't know the answer to that for sure.
Senator, you said that perhaps we should explore legislatively whether parents should be required to keep their guns under lock and key. Do you think that should be the case? What's your opinion on it?
I think it's only prudent. I think it's that would be an exercise of good judgment, and I think it's an open issue whether we ought to require parents to, from a legal standpoint, in the absence of good judgment.
Federal or local?
I think both of those we need to look at it at both levels.
Senator, you had mentioned that the firearms were taken from the suspect's father. Is there any indication that the suspect's father was aware that the son, in fact, had taken those firearms?
I'm not aware of the answer to that. I'm sure you'll get an answer from some of the law enforcement officials at some point when they get farther along in their investigation.
Senator, when Governor Abbott calls for a round table, what are you hoping to come out of that, especially since so many people call for gun control after things like this?
Well, we're all searching for what we can do that will make a difference and save lives. Unfortunately, as you know, gun rights, gun safety is a politically volatile topic, but and in Washington, D.C., often people want to offer symbolic gestures, but that don't really save lives. For example, after the Sutherland Springs shooting, we were able to pass a bill that would improve the background check system that prevents people who cannot legally purchase or possess a firearm from acquiring them. I'm glad we were able to do that with broad bipartisan support, and I believe that that will save lives. But will it save lives in every potential scenario? Probably not, because you have, for example, children taking their parents' guns, and much is what happened at Sandy Hook when Adam Lanza took his mother's guns and killed her with those guns before he murdered the innocent children at the elementary school.
Senator, do you plan on having a single roundtable talk at the federal level? Who do you think will be on that roundtable?
I don't plan on holding any roundtables. I think we have a good idea about the range of things that we need to do. I think what we need is a good investigation from law enforcement that shows us where the gaps are and what gaps we need to fill. We know from what happened at Parkland High School in Florida that there was a catastrophic failure across the board, from local to state to federal law enforcement, from mental health officials, from families, from the school not preparing and hardening themselves as a target. And really the tragedy that happened there was a result of all of the failures. So if we can identify with specificity where we can fill the gap and make a difference that will save lives, that's where I would concentrate our efforts.
We've got time for two more.
The students from Parkland High School started their own movement. The students at this high school may now join it and march to Washington and demand for greater gun control. What would you say to them?
Again, I'm interested in doing things that will solve problems rather than just pure symbolism. Obviously, they have a right to advocate for anything that they wish, but we live under a constitution that guarantees the right to keep and bear arms for law-abiding citizens, and I support that right. But we don't believe that people who are convicted felons, people who have been adjudicated mentally ill, people who are convicted wife beaters, people who are dishonorably discharged from the military, all of those are disqualifying events under the current law, and you should not legally be able to get or keep or acquire a firearm under those circumstances. So I think we first need to focus on enforcing the laws that are on the books and making sure they work appropriately, like the background check system. And if there are other gaps we need to fill, other discussions we need to have which will actually save lives, I'm all in.